Hello there. I am Dr. Jen, and this is My Life as a Landlord. I am so pleased that you have joined me for today's location-specific show. Today, we're exploring the location-specific tenancy guidelines for the Canadian Province of Saskatchewan. In all of my location-specific episodes, I've included a ton of hyperlinks to the province or state residential tenancies, locations, resources, all kinds of legal aid things, everything that you need to get started for Saskatchewan. And so these location-specific podcasts are all set up the exact same way, answering four different questions. One, what are the basics of the Residential Tenancies Act of Saskatchewan? Two, what are some of the nuances of this location based on the other locations that we've studied so far? Three, what is some guidance about abandoned items left behind by a tenant in the province of Saskatchewan? Four, where to get help in the local area in Saskatchewan. But I will tell you that there is more to all of this than what I'm going to just tell you today. So here's your disclaimer. I know you're probably rolling your eyes. That's fine, but you've got to do your own due diligence. Call your city hall, call your regional district, whatever is in your local area. You've got to do your own research because I can just get you started. I do not own rentals in Saskatchewan. I am not a Saskatchewan landlord. And so I need for you as a Saskatchewan landlord to do your own due diligence in your local area. Again, this is where your rentals are. If you don't live in Saskatchewan, but your rentals are in Saskatchewan, you're in the right place. But this episode is not all inclusive. This is just designed to get you started. I do need to put in a plug here for today's sponsor, Aloha Capital Investments LLC. If you want to know what Michael and I are up to in real estate investing, you want to see what's going on, check out alohajv.com. Okay, so we're going to get into this. So if you're watching this on YouTube at My Life as a Landlord, I'm going to share my screen, which is what I do just about every one of our location specific episodes because that makes it easier for me to walk through these documents with you. And by the way, all these hyperlinks are in the description of the show. So you've got all this. Also know that because we're going to be flipping through some of these documents, the shows doesn't flow as well as a normal framework with a guest and things like that. It's very choppy and we're looking for certain things. We're just trying to get you the resources that you need to get you started, but it doesn't necessarily go in any kind of order. So just bear with me as we go here. Okay. So what we've got on the screen here is the Residential Tenancies Act 2006 for statutes of Saskatchewan. So the Residential Tenancies Act. Now, remember that every tenancy law, in this case in Saskatchewan, is still a law. And so you're going to see this is very legalese. Why? Because it's a law. So here it is. Here's all your definitions. Here's everything. Now, typically what will happen is somebody, typically like a legal aid society or a residential tenancy branch, some government agency will take the act and they will make a user guide. And so there's several user guides we're going to talk about today. They hopefully will make some pre-made forms. They will help you do this because just the law itself is very legalese. It's very hard. It's not necessarily user friendly because it wasn't designed to be user friendly. It's a law. Okay, so if we're done with that, 60 pages in here. I'm just going to scroll down to the end because I can't remember if this has got any attachments or not. So we're just going to check real quick. And then we're going to move on to some of the other references here. I don't think this has got anything other than the legals. Yeah, no, it's just the legal stuff. Okay, next one is, oh, this is Saskatchewan Housing Corporation. This is affordable housing for seniors, family, individuals, low, moderate incomes. So this is the application for this. And this was something through CMHC document checklist. I just put this in for reference because it seemed like the Saskatchewan Housing Corporation has a lot of folks living in housing in Saskatchewan. It just seemed like there was a lot of that going on. So I wanted to make sure that you've got the information and it's got stuff about emergency shelters and stuff like that. So if you're a landlord, this may not apply to you, but I just threw this in just because I found it. I thought it was interesting. Okay, Saskatchewan Human Rights Commission. Again, this is interesting. This is talking about who needs the information. They want to make sure that you know about the Saskatchewan Human Rights Code, protecting equality without discrimination. And it's got all these different protected classes. Notice that smokers are not in here. Smoking is not a protected class. I'm just saying. And here we go. Who needs the information? Anyone renting, leasing, subleasing. It applies to housing issues. Here it is, landlords and tenants. Some exceptions, you have a duty as a landlord, a duty to accommodate, reasonable accommodation. Even pet-free buildings, landlords are required to permit service animals, as a service animal is not considered a pet because a service animal has a job. If you want to know more about that, I've got plenty of episodes about animals and specifically service animals and animals with a job in the library. Please make sure you're looking at this. Okay, frequently asked questions about, this is all, again, this is all the Human Rights Commission. So if you're a landlord and this is new to you, please make sure you read this because you want to do this. Here's an interesting question. I've decided to ask for a credit check, but this applicant has no credit history. Can I ignore the application? The answer is no. Young people just starting out or newcomers to Canada, people maybe fleeing another place, may not have a credit history. You should consider what other information you have and what the information means when taking together. If, for example, is the person otherwise a good candidate when you exclude the lack of credit history? Success leaves clues. Also, so does mischief. Okay, frequently asked questions from tenants. It's a bit of a short list, but it's there. So you can at least use that for some references. This is the Legal Aid Society in Saskatchewan. So this talks about get legal help, criminal lawyer, family lawyer, legal aid. What is it? Information for lawyers. Latest news. If you have nowhere else to start at your Legal Aid Society. The website is legalaid.sk.ca, and you can at least get some help and even ask the question and just say, I'm a new landlord to Saskatchewan. I need to do this, that, and the other. I need to create a lease. I need to check a lease. I've got a problem, whatever it is. They can at least guide you, which is good. So, and they've also got an application center number up here, what'll get you started. Yeah, there's all kinds of resources here. Working with your lawyer. Yep. Okay, keep going. So this one, do not ask me again. This one, Saskatchewan Housing Corporation. Oh, I've already talked about that. Okay, good. Where is this one? Okay, so this one, I typically don't go for these. This is like a federal website and it has the different provinces in it. And I don't normally do that. But for this one, I did because it didn't seem that there was a guide. So I was looking at this going, So this is tenantrights.ca and this is for Saskatchewan. So there are other provinces in here as well, but I don't always, I try to go to the source documents. I try not to go to these overlay sites, which is what this is. Yeah, so let me just pull this up. Key money. Maybe that's why I had pulled this up. So some of this is actually helpful, but let me just make sure. Oh, here we go. This was another reason I did this. Okay, so I just clicked on Saskatchewan.ca, and this is about residents, housing, renting, leasing, about how this all works. So this is the provincial website, and then you keep going down the different drop-down menus, and you will find that the Office of Residential Tenancies is here. And it's got tons of YouTube videos, like lots of YouTube videos. So tenancy agreements, I've not ever seen this before, where a province or a government body in general has embedded YouTube videos in their website. That's pretty interesting. Plus, they have made these videos in like 30 different languages, which is really interesting. But let's go through some of this and then we'll go through the final bit. Those of you who've watched my location specific episodes before know that I have a bit of a checklist of what is kind of standard and what is missing, and you can kind of see what I'm looking for, the high points of what I'm looking for. But it's not all inclusive, right? Okay, so it starts out with verbal tenancy agreements. Not a good idea. You do not want a verbal tenancy agreement. You want to make sure you have a written tenancy agreement as much as possible. And of course, it says in here, yes, you have to provide, as a landlord, you have to provide within 20 days a copy of the lease. So you want to make sure you've got it. And also everybody else, well, in this instance, it's not the lease, it's just the contact information. This is a bad idea to not have a written lease. Hello, make sure you have a written lease. Written tenancy agreements. This agreement requires a signed copy of any written agreement to be provided with all tenants within 20 days of the tenancy start date. Yay, that's good. And then it says exactly what's supposed to be in here. And if there is Oh, they missed it. Typically, what I'm adding to leases and what I'm finding is that locations that are very prudent about the age of the tenant population in general is aging. And so what I'm seeing more and more in the lease agreements, in the contact information, is the landlords are requesting a tenant authorized party, that if the tenant becomes debilitated or dies in the unit, that there is a person that is authorized to enter the unit, dispose of the contents of the unit, and receive the security deposit. And so that in advance will help the landlord. So this is not listed here at all for Saskatchewan. So that's missing. If you're listening to this and you're a landlord in Saskatchewan, you can add that in your tenancy, your lease addendum, and you will. And I should do that as well. I haven't done that either, but it's very important. Okay, fixed term tenancies. Fixed term must include an end date in the written agreement. And then if you're going to non-renew, then you must tell that in at least 2 months before the end of the tenancy. And then you must notify the tenant of the intentions regarding the renewal. And the approved form, they do have an online portal. In fact, let's go ahead and open that up. The online portal under new notice for landlord, title, term lease, 2-month notice intention form. Let's go ahead and go there. Oh, it's the same one. Oh, no, this is the form. Okay, leases and other documents. So this has got Office of Residential Tenancies news and notices. So I'm on the same government website, saskatchewan.ca, but now I'm going down to, and I think there's a search bar. There is. What are you looking for? So put in there just tenancies or housing. Something will jump up. There's also phone numbers on the right-hand side that you can call the Office of Residential Tenancies, or you can email them. The phone number is 888-215-2222. And then, of course, there's a Regina office and a Saskatoon office, and you can email them. That's probably the best, but you can call them as well. Okay, clinics, non-compliant list, additional information for landlords and tenants. So tenancy agreement, learn the difference between verbal and written tenancy agreements, security deposits, about how the security deposits work, how landlords must claim a security deposit, how a tenant can dispute a claim, and then a security deposit hearing process. Rent increases. In fact, let's go ahead and click on this. See how choppy this is? This is, and I normally like to try to do it a little bit better. Okay, periodic tenancies. Rent may be increased by either a percentage or dollar amount for fixed term tenancies as indicated in the written tenancy agreement. 2-month notice of intention form. Okay, so we did go to the online portal and it sort of got us into a loop here. Okay, let's go again. We're trying to get to that online portal. How come we can't get to the online? Oh, here it is, online portal. Okay, so I do not have a Saskatchewan account is required to access the online portal. New users will need to register. Okay, so if you are a Saskatchewan landlord, hopefully you are already registered in here, and hopefully you are a member of a landlord association in Saskatchewan. You're going to see why here in a bit. You can create an individual account if you are an individual landlord, a tenant, or the power of attorney. Online, I'm just going to click it just to see what's going on. It's probably going to request a login. Let's see what it does. Hang on a second. Yeah, so it says create account. Okay, so Saskatchewan account login. And then of course, again, it's got another embedded YouTube video that is super helpful. Okay, periodic tenancies, landlords who are not, here's the thing, landlords who are not members of prescribed landlord association may serve tenants with a 12-month notice of rent increase available through the online portal. So if you are a member of a prescribed landlord association in Saskatchewan, you can raise the rent faster. You're going to see that. So let's see. Yeah, rent increases may not begin within the first 18 months of tenancy start date, and the rent may only be increased every 12 months. So you actually have to give your tenants, if you're a landlord in Saskatchewan, you have to give your tenants 6 months notice. Wow, that's a long time for notice. But in this day and age, when things are fluctuating so wildly, that's actually a good thing. So here's another one. Landlords who are members in good standing of either the Network of Nonprofit Housing Providers of Saskatchewan Incorporated or the Saskatchewan Landlord Association may serve tenants with a 6-month notice of rent increase as prescribed by the Landlord Association members through the online portal. And again, rent increase may not begin within the first 12 months of the tenancy and can only be increased once every 6 months. So in Saskatchewan, they've done an education incentive program that if you're a member in good standing, meaning you have to go, you have to pay the fees, you have to attend the education stuff, you have to actually be a member, then you can get your rent increase more often. That doesn't address the affordability issue, which is always another argument, and we talk about that in all the research and stuff that we do on the podcast. So anyway, want to make sure you've got that. Okay, that answers about the landlord right to increase rent. Let's go back to repairs and maintenance, notice of entry, property left behind by a tenant. Let's just go there. Property left behind by a tenant. Let me close out some of these things because I'm getting confused on what windows what. Okay, property left behind by a tenant. Tenants should remove all their belongings. Okay, we know that, but if they don't, if something happens and they have to leave unexpectedly, so a landlord may be held legally responsible for disposing of a tenant's items unlawfully. This is very important. And when we're talking about abandoned items, there's typically a daytime amount that a landlord has to try in good faith to get a hold of the tenant. And then there's usually a dollar amount as well, where below that dollar amount can either be disposed of or donated after the days are gone, like after you've waited enough time, or the property can be sold and then pay either damages or go towards storage and things like that. So in Saskatchewan, it says if a tenant leaves property valued over $1,500 by a landlord may apply. You have to apply to the Office of Residential Tenancies for a property disposition order. This is really important because you can't just do it. In other locations, you can just do it if you've waited all the time. In Saskatchewan, you can't. You actually have to apply for it. But all you're doing is you're proving that you've done what you've done. But remember, when you do this, you have to do inventory checklists. You're going to see some of these pre-made forms. They're very involved, and this is pretty involved here. Okay, so you're proving that you've done it all. Okay, so that's your abandoned items one, but let's go here. Let's go to notice of entry. So in Saskatchewan's case, they do not have a user guide per se because their website is actually really well set up. It's just very disjointed. So trying to do a podcast episode like this, it doesn't seem to flow very well. Normally you can do like a guide and I can screen share and I can go through it, even though the subject matter may jump around. This is jumping around on the website as well. Okay, so we're talking about notice of entry in general. Unless tenant gives permission to enter or the tenant appears to have abandoned the unit or an emergency exists that requires entry to protect life or property, landlords must provide at least 24 hours to 7 days written notice to enter a unit. At least 24 to 7 days written notice to enter a rental unit. So you've got to give at least 1 day, but up to 7 days in advance for a rental unit. It must include the purpose for the entering and the date and time of the entry. And approved notice entry forms are available through the online portal under new notice. Landlord may only provide, oh, here we go. A landlord may only provide a maximum 4-hour period between 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. to enter the unit. Interesting. So our annual maintenance times, we actually, in British Columbia, we give notice for 2 days for inspection and repairs. And it's basically all day. Well, it's not all day. It's usually like 9 a.m. to like 4 p.m. We'll do it 2 days in advance. In Saskatchewan, you can't do that. Interesting. Okay. Notice of entry for prospective tenants. So this is very specific about showing the unit to other people before the tenants who are departing have gone. So once the tenants have provided the notice to end tenancy or the fixed term tenancy agreement is set to end within 2 months, landlords must provide at least 2 hours notice to enter a rental unit to show prospective tenants unless the tenant gives permission to enter or to do other unreasonable terms. A landlord may only enter between 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. So that's what they consider reasonable hours. So that's interesting. And they may not enter on a Sunday or on a religious worship day for the tenant. Notice may be by phone or email. Interesting. Okay. Notice must be posted. Okay. Interesting. All right. I've never seen where the actual dates are. It just says reasonable time. Cool. All right, let's go to repairs and maintenance, and then we'll just look at a few more. Saskatchewan actually is pretty well put together. And there's lots and lots of help. That's the other thing that's really good. So here's another one, repairs and maintenance. There's tons of videos. There's 3 videos here. And then there's tenants. There's 2 videos here. Actually, oh, I see what this is. This is American Sign Language. They've got this information not only on YouTube, but they've got someone signing. Very cool. I like that. They talk about pest infestations. Okay, cleaning at the end of a tenancy. Okay, so here's another one. So tenants are required to leave the premises reasonably clean and to repair any damages that are not due to reasonable wear and tear. We've talked a lot about normal wear and tear. This is the same thing. Landlords cannot automatically charge for cleaning in a tenancy agreement. However, a landlord may claim cleaning costs, damages, and outstanding rent, utility in arrears, or loss. And you have to make a claim to the tenant security deposit within 7 days of the tenancy ending, or by filing a monetary application. And you do that through the online portal. Interesting. Looks like you got lots of support though. That's kind of cool. All right, let me make sure that I've gotten everything. So we talked about that. Legal aid in Saskatchewan. Human Rights Code. I'm gonna take that one away. Okay. We didn't talk about late fees. Let's just go up here and go late fee. Or how about late? No, it doesn't have it in there. How about rate payment, payment of earning? Just say rent payment. I am just typing into the search bar and I'm not finding anything. So I'm gonna stop sharing for now. It looks like we've exhausted the resources that we have that are in the description of the show. But we're gonna just sort of go through my checklist here. So there's a tenant application fee. Did they talk about a tenant application fee? No, but they did say that money, keys for money is, what do they call it? Money fee. Hang on a second. Let me check this back. Key money. It is unlawful to charge tenants key money. Basically, it's just an extra payment that is paid to the landlord for getting the unit, and that's illegal in Saskatchewan. It's not illegal everywhere, but it is there. Okay. Grace period for late rent without penalty. It looks like it's 14 days. Terminating a lease. Sorry, I'm just looking down here. Notice and timing late. Oh, here we go. If the rent has not been paid the day after the due date starts in the lease, it's considered late. A landlord can charge the tenant a fee that is also specified in the lease. So this is great. You've got to have the late fee specified out, and it'll either be a flat rate or it'll be a percentage. And it doesn't say which, but it looks like you can either you would find them, or you can you can call them. I would call Office of Tenancy. Um, Goodness, I'm losing my mind here. Office of Residential Tenancies, and ask them and say, is there a standard reasonable late fee amount? And they will say it's either, a X amount of dollars, or they will say it's traditionally X percentage of the rent. And so that's reasonable. But there is no grace period in Saskatchewan. That's interesting. Security deposit method. It doesn't say much about security deposits. It does say about returning the security deposits. That's okay. I'm just sort of flipping through as we go through. Pre-made forms. There are pre-made forms, but they're on the online portal because they want to make sure that if you are a member in good standing of one of those associations as a landlord, that you get the right notices for rent increase, because you can do it in advance. You can do it faster. So there is pre-made forms. I just can't see them. Lease wording and details. Yes, there is a lot about lease wording and details. Pets and animals. Yes, they talk about animals and additional deposits. Delivered a signed lease required. Yes. Condition inspection at move-in. Yes, it is said best practice. It doesn't say it's required, but you do want to have it. Okay. Standard warning letters or wording. Again, I suspect it's behind the online portal there. So I'm going to say yes. Required maintenance inspections, no. How often rent increase, how much of rent increase, and how much notice. We've discussed all that depending on the landlord's membership in an association or not. Renter's insurance, nothing is said about renter's insurance. End of fixed lease it is abrupt, and I didn't see anything about an acceleration clause. So if there is a let's say you sign a 1-year lease, the tenant signs a 1-year lease, and then they end up breaking it. I didn't see anything where or they end up ending it quickly, or they end it early. It doesn't look like they're still due, they're still required to pay for the remainder amount. British Columbia is the same way. So it doesn't look like there's an acceleration clause. It looks like the tenancy will just end, and then you get to re-rent the unit. You can't, as far as I understand, you can have lease termination fees though. Condition inspection at move out, yes. Return of deposit, we talked about this already, about returning the deposit. Use of the last month's rent, yes or no? Yes. Retaliation defined, landlord retaliation. I didn't see anything in here about landlord retaliation, but that doesn't mean it's not there. Third party for housing for disputes, or do you go right to court? It looks like you have the Office of Tenancy, residential tenancies, that it looks like there's a bit of an arbitration aspect. Um, mhm. Okay. Abandoned items. We did talk about this. We talked about getting the application for property disposition order and going in through the online portal and basically proving that you've done everything you possibly can for these inventoried items, and anything that's less than $1,500, you can apply to either throw it away or apply to any outstanding information. Okay, let's see. Where to get help in the Canadian Province of Saskatchewan. I've got a ton of references here for that. SaskatchewanHumanRights.ca, Saskatchewan Housing Corporation, which is 211 Saskatchewan, Legal Aid Society in Saskatchewan. These are all in the description. legalaid.sk.ca. And then the Office of Residential Tenancies in Saskatchewan. Their phone number is 888-215-2222, or you can email them ort@gov.sk.ca. Really well done with all the YouTube videos in there. Okay, with Saskatchewan, there's not a whole lot to it. It seems like there's a good bit of support, a good bit of information. There you go. Each of my location-specific podcasts is set up the same way. We answer the same 4 questions. What are the basics about tenancy law in that location? What are some of the nuances of that location? What about abandoned items left behind in that location? And then where to get help in that particular geographic location. This is the same format for every location-specific episode. So if you're interested in another geographic area, you already know the framework I'm going to talk about. But again, one more time, the disclaimer, this episode is not all inclusive. If you've got questions, pick up the phone or send an email. Make sure you educate yourself, especially in your local area. There may be additional items that I did not talk about, especially if you're in rural Saskatchewan. You want to make sure that you're doing everything the right way. Office of Residential Tenancies is the #1 place that you would go. If you've got any questions whatsoever, just pick up the phone and call them. These people will know. Okay, if you're listening to this podcast, chances are that you are either new to real estate in general or you are new to real estate in Saskatchewan. Things that you can do to help yourself are read the Residential Tenancies Act for Saskatchewan, or better yet, get into the room, whether it's in person or on social media, with other Saskatchewan landlords. Get your questions out and get other people talking to you. So if you can get to a local meetup in Regina or Saskatoon or anywhere else, they might have some local in-person meetup groups for either real estate or landlords. They are probably people who are going to be able to help you. But you can also jump on social media, whether there is a Saskatchewan specific landlord group, I don't know. But I do know that there are lots of national, Canadian, mostly US based, but you'll see me in these Facebook and LinkedIn groups as well, asking questions, and just say, hey, I'm a Saskatchewan landlord. Here's my issue. Here's my question. What do I do? And people will jump out and guide you. And honestly, the best thing that you can do it right now, if you've got a question and you're not really sure, just call Office of Residential Tenancies. But if you want advice from another landlord about the words to say, if that's why you're on this podcast, then you can go to social media and they can help you as well, especially in a generic form. It doesn't have to be Saskatchewan specific. They can help you as well. I hope that helped. And if you learned something from today's show, please give me a review. I'm really trying to help as many people as possible, and that will help me get found. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or maybe you listen to this on mylifeasalandlord.com. It doesn't matter which platform you listen to, but if you can give a review, that would really help. I hope you enjoyed today's show all about Saskatchewan. Today I'm recording this episode on Maui, Hawaii. Why? Because real estate takes you places. Where do you want real estate to take you? Join me next week. Join me in the next episode, live right now in the library, episode 148, about the state of Maine. Live right now. I will see you there.